And we are live. And a glorious good afternoon to each and every one of you. Welcome to We the People. We come to you every Thursday in the 2 o'clock hour just to remind you that you have power and say-so in government. Malcolm X once said, education is our passport to the future, for tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. Government and how it works impacts us 24/7, 365, so we need to get smarter about it. I'm your host, Angela Taylor, and I'm here with my absolute favorite millennial, Michaela McCrae. I call her Eminem because she doesn't melt under the pressure. And sitting here is, and I'm going to speak it into existence, our future county executive, Tanya Sweat. You will have, if you don't see her on the ballot in November, there will be a write-in line on that ballot. You want to write her in, TONYA space SWAT. Now, we're going to jump into our topic in a minute, but you said that you're going to be doing a
presentation on Saturday. Yes,
on Saturday at Watkins Park.
Yes,
One thing I need to correct on that, when you said slaves negotiated reparations, they did not. I checked. I asked you for a source, and then maybe you were busy with your court cases, but I checked. Ministers went to Sherman.
They were freedmen.
Wait a minute. Ministers went to or talked to Sherman and the Secretary of War. That's what they called him back then.
Yes.
And had a talk, but they did not, make any demands. This is what, if you would approve this, we would like to get our folks started some kind of way, but they did not do any negotiating. And I think that's an important point to make. So,
call it what you will. The 40,000 acres. There were 40,000 acres.
Don't matter. Some of them got it.
Designated.
When Lincoln got it, when Lincoln got assassinated, his vice president pulled all that back. Some folks got it.
And this is what you got to do. You got to look at the timeline and how this thing was done. The way it's been explained to us comes with a color that is not objective. So what I have done,
a color that's not objective, you can have
it's not objective. Yeah. People always put their slant on it when they explain this. What I have done is, because I never called myself a historian, but I was curious, so
I'm a Black history expert according to Les Brown. But continue.
You gotta go back to the records and read and I dare call them ancient records. And they're in the archives, Department of Justice. The White House has some of this stuff. The Library of Congress has a lot of this stuff. The Supreme Court has these records. You can't just look at what you see in a history book or what you read from somebody's blog or what you even find online.
I don't do blogs. I read.
So this is the deal. Before the Civil War ended, President Lincoln had already had a plan for how we were going to reconstitute the country. He knew going into the Civil War that it was going to tear the country apart.
Yeah.
He already had a plan. If you look at the passage of the 13th Amendment, that passed before the war ended. That was enacted before the war ended. Slavery was prohibited during the Civil War.
It was abolished in 1863.
When did the war end?
1865. Right.
In the heart of the Civil War, in the heart of the battle, the president had already constructed a plan.
Okay. But
at the end
my question.
I'm getting there because I need you to understand the context behind it. At the end, before the war ended, Lincoln did send his Secretary of War to Georgia, Savannah, Georgia, with the instructions, find me some freed men or some slaves who can participate in this conversation.
Where can I find that information? Because I've read so many
Go
books.
back to the National Archives. You've got to look at the instructions, the written instructions he gave to the Secretary of War. The Secretary of War was sent down south to find black people.
So we're talking about we're talking about 1865.
Yes, ma'am.
But see, that's unrealistic.
That is not unrealistic.
Wait, whoa. one at a time.
It is unrealistic because you're expecting for people to have a conceptual understanding that slaves who were newly freed in 1865 could argue or negotiate some reparations when they were not even seen to have any power.
But what you got to do is you've got to acknowledge that there's some slaves who bought their freedom long before 1865.
But whether they bought their freedom or they consciously believed every day that they were free does not subject them to a place that they can argue or demand power from people who hold the power over them.
And it wasn't about demanding.
That's what negotiating is.
No, you're not demanding anything. You're being invited to the table.
Okay, and just for a point of clarification, in 1867, Roger P. Tawney, the Supreme Court Justice, ruled in the Dred Scott case that black people were not people.
Exactly.
But that was a Supreme Court case. And what you need to understand is,
Wasn't it?
There's more to it because you overlooked the Civil Rights Act of 1866.
Mm-mm.
And you overlooked that there were 2 other Civil Rights Acts
Well, I know, that's in
the
my
midst
game.
of all of that.
Mm-hmm. That's in my book. Mm-hmm.
But again, you got to walk through the whole history to understand the culture and what was happening in the country at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That was done because there was a battle over economics.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, after the war ended, because there was a depression in 1873.
Mm-hmm.
The stock market crashed, and people blamed the black folk for the crash of the market and the fact that slavery had ended. It didn't have anything to do with black folk. It had everything to do with the fact that England withdrew its investments in this country. And it caused one of the largest banks in the nation to go under in New York. And then the stock market crashed. And instead of people pointing the finger back across the river, they pointed the finger right here because there had been this constant battle about economics and where are we going to include the black people in all of this. And yes, there were some, they called them planters at the time. There were slave owners, former plantation owners who were upset because their plantations were decimated by the war. Houses falling apart, lands had been planted for years, and part of the reparations was that these slaves, former slaves, were now living on that land, farming that land. They wanted their land back.
Also, part of the reparations back then, because AIG was the insurance company, they paid the slave owners
for their loss. Yeah,
$300 a head
for their loss.
Yeah.
That was the insurance
they got
company.
reparations.
Exactly.
That was not the
We
government. That was not the government.
Then who was it?
That was a private insurance company. That was funded by Britain. That wasn't funded by the U.S. government.
But they got reparations.
They got
that's the point. Yeah.
That's theirs. You call it what you want. They got their insurance claim. But you still had black people living on these plantations that they basically were squatters because the federal government says we're taking this as a part of war and we're allowing you, we're going to give it to you, deed it to you.
Deed the land.
The land, yes ma'am. Deed it to you to live. It was 40,000 acres between Charleston, South Carolina, and Jacksonville, Florida. These plantation owners, they come back, they want their land back. So guess what? You got the start of a labor movement. You got a start of a new economy in this country because now you're giving workers the right to bargain for whatever. There were some black people who picked up guns. They picked up guns and fought to stay on their land.
Absolutely. I hope it's not a monolithic understanding that black people don't fight against oppression.
There were some who said, you know what? We're going to stay here together. Hence the term sharecroppers.
The sharecroppers came from...
That was in 1865.
Okay, now whose idea was that?
It was the black folks. It was not the white folks because they wanted them gone. Or they wanted them to remain slaves.
I'm
and black people said, I'm not going to stay a slave. I'm not going to stay a slave. The government has given me this land, so I have a claim to it just like you do. I'll work for you on this land, but you're going to pay me. I'm not working for free.
But they wound up still jugging the black folks out of their money and the crops.
Yes, they did. They used the crops. They didn't pay them as much as they should have paid them, as much as it was worth. But there were black folk who stayed and took, and my family was one, took what they could get. Some of those black folk raised enough money through sharecropping to actually buy back the piece of land that the government had given them. So to say we couldn't negotiate says to me, what you're not accepting is that we're smart enough. We were not sophisticated enough to overcome our oppressors, but we were still smart enough to get something out of the deal, because reparations was about give us the land and we will do the rest. They didn't ask the government for money. If you give us land, the mule came in because Sherman said, oh, the Army's got some old mules that we used during the war. If y'all gonna divide this land up amongst yourselves to work as farmers, we're gonna throw the mules in. Army mules. He threw them in the deal.
So they hoodwinked and swindled them by allowing them to stay on the land, sharecrop the land from each other.
Reparations was 5 months. January to May. 5 months. Because Lincoln was shot in April.
Yeah, but
and as soon as he died,
and when Andrew,
the vice president took everything of that.
Andrew Johnson became president, and he repealed it because Andrew Johnson was never one to want to free the slaves.
I know.
So reparation means the making of amends. Because I like this. That was cute. I liked it. I like how we got there. Right. Reparation is designed to make amends.
Yes.
To acknowledge that I was wrong, to do what I did, and to make amends. Those type of arguments suggest that, oh, black people had an opportunity, but we fumbled the bag.
No, I never said we fumbled it. We negotiated for 40,000 acres of land.
I don't see how that's negotiation when we
did
not own it, right? We didn't own it. We cultivated it, and they came back with deeds to take the land back. Is that what?
Stop.
Okay.
Again, that's why I went back to the legal history and went back to the records. The federal government gave the freed slaves deeds because the federal government had taken that land during the war.
Right.
But then you had slave owners who had abandoned the land during the war.
Right, because they couldn't cultivate
Because I want you to think about this.
Go ahead, Tanya.
Who was managing the plantations during the war?
Oh, we already know. Black people were.
Stop. I said managing.
During the war, nobody.
White women. The white men were at war. They all had to pack up and go to war. And many of those white men in the South were killed.
And some of
the white women and the older white men left to save their lives because the Union was winning. The Union was taking hold. So they got the hell out of Dodge.
They didn't. So you're telling this is during the Civil War?
During the Civil War, yes, ma'am.
When our ancestors were still enslaved?
They were not enslaved. Remember, they were freed. The 13th Amendment was enacted in the heart of the battle, 1863.
And
but then we get.
Go ahead.
That's why I said you got to read the legal history, baby.
I mean,
and
whether it was legal, whether it was legal or not, whether it was subjective.
The plantation owners did not. Once Johnson, the vice president, got in and rescinded that, overturned all that. They were screwing us left and right like we were slaves. Not enslaved Africans, because I hate the term slaves.
The South was not happy about the fact that slavery had been prohibited, but it was prohibited with the 13th Amendment during the middle of the battle.
Got you.
I'm free now.
But see, I think that goes into the Du Bois and Booker T. Washington's debate, because when I was an undergrad, I was like, we should have taken the space in which they allowed for us to be free and go and get these degrees and go to school and all
that was
this stuff.
The plan.
But and then I thought that when they were teaching me in college. But then after I started to think, more critically about the real argument that Booker T. Washington and W.B. Du Bois was talking about, and it has a lot to do with what we're experiencing today. Booker T. Washington was opening up the minds of an independent type of relationship that you have with the United States government, teaching you how to crop, teaching you how to till the land, and doing things for self. W.B. Du Bois thought, well, we need to integrate into their spaces and get these degrees, and one day we'll get respectability. At the end of the day, we were asking or wanting for thousands and millions of enslaved people who were newly freed to be able to go and read books and create a thesis and argue all of this. In reality, we should have been on the mindset of what Booker T. Washington was actually saying, because when we allowed for that space to be left, because that was our trump card. We've been doing the work. We've been doing all the land this whole time. that was our trump card. But instead, we subscribe to a notion that, okay, well, if we go and negotiate, or if we go and try and fall in line to their or subscribe to their way of thinking, then we'll possibly get something out of it. I do not understand. I don't know how we can say that newly freed slaves during one
that
of the
period. During that period
during the actual war could have any type of power to say that these are my negotiations. Like, please stop enslaving us. Like,
I'm not enslaving you. What I'm telling you is Abraham Lincoln said, what is it that will make amends? What do you want? And the slaves said exactly what you just said Booker T. Washington was fighting for. Give us the land and we will do the rest. Do you know what they did in 5 months? And because I grew up in this area, be careful now, because I know my history.
I know mine too.
I have walked
I know
it.
mine
I
too.
grew up in it. I lived it. My grandmother was born on St. John's Island, South Carolina, which is a part of the reparations area. So be careful.
So I can't know it because I didn't live
No,
it?
No. I said be careful what comes
You
out
can
of your
know it.
mouth. You can know it, but be careful how you describe it, because that's the problem. We describe it with anger. We describe it with
I don't
the
think
mind.
I'm describing it with
No,
anger.
I
have done
said,
my
Miss
work.
Angela, I said we. I said we. I didn't point the finger at you. The collective describes it with anger. We describe it with betrayal. We describe it with a mindset and an attitude of victimization and not understanding the complexities of what was happening back then.
But we were victims. I don't care.
We unfortunately we got caught in the middle of a battle between white men, and we've not overcome that.
Oh no! Unfortunately, we got taking from our land. We were spiritually raped. We were mentally, emotionally.
Again,
and
I want you to tell me. Let's talk about what happened in the 5 months of reparations in that area of land between Charleston, South Carolina, and Jacksonville, Florida. Do you know? I'm gonna tell you. They built the freed slaves built schools.
Okay, the freedmen. Okay, 100%.
They farmed the land. They had churches.
100%.
They set up their own government. They established their own court system. They literally had a governmental system in that 40 acres that looked very much like the governmental system of the United States.
Absolutely.
In 5 months.
Yeah, we get a Tulsa.
We
get
and
a
then they came and
Rosewood.
burned it
Thank
down.
you. Thank you.
They didn't burn. They didn't burn it down.
Let's not be victims.
It wasn't burnt.
Okay. Well,
It was never burnt.
Yeah, but they came with the rules from the.
It was
federal
never
government.
burnt.
Okay.
This is what happened. Again,
Okay.
I'm a black man, freed man with a deed in my hand, because it's black men.
I got you.
Miss Polly,
Who is that?
the wife of the former slave owner, former plantation owner who had ran during the Civil War because her husband was fighting the battle and got killed. Miss Polly couldn't maintain it anymore. But Miss Polly had a deed from when her husband claimed the land. So Miss Polly shows back up. Miss Polly comes back from Pennsylvania. They came back from up north because the white folk down south ran north during the Civil War.
Right.
That's the part of the story that they don't always tell you in the history books. They ran west. So they came back with, I got my deed. Freed slave got his deed. Whose is valid? Whose is valid? And what court?
I'm waiting for you to give me the
question
answer.
is, what court's gonna make a decision? And no court made a decision. Again, that's how we ended up with the phenomenon called sharecropping. Because the black man says, look, I'm going to take care of my family. The government gave me this deed. I'm going to work this land. The federal government literally was off trying to force the states that seceded to reestablish and reconstitute their governments to give us freed slaves a fair space in all of this. They're not paying attention to what's happening on the plantation land or the reparations land. So these people worked it out amongst themselves. And this institution of sharecropping went on for years. So
what's the thesis statement?
Again, then you have Andrew Johnson comes in, and not only does he say, I'm repealing Special Field Order Number 15, Andrew Johnson says, I'm going to do my own type of reconstruction because I don't like what Lincoln left behind. Because Lincoln's intent was to extend to freed slaves the seat at the table so that fairness could be done and we could be treated like the native-born Americans that the 14th Constitution, the 14th Amendment to the Constitution said we were. Because the 14th Amendment passed very quickly and was enacted very quickly after the Civil War ended.
Well, it wasn't real because Mississippi just enacted it in 1995.
The federal government, all it takes is 3/4 of the state to become law. If Mississippi didn't want to acknowledge it, just like Maryland didn't acknowledge some things until 1969, Maryland didn't give black men the right to vote until 1969. Who knew that? They didn't. Maryland did not ratify. They did not ratify the 15th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution until 1969.
You said the 15th or the 14th?
The 15th Amendment. There were 3 amendments, Civil War amendments, the 13th, 14th, and 15th.
1860.
The 13th freed the slaves. The 14th made us
65.
citizens by birth. And the 15th Amendment gave the black man the right to vote.
68.
Maryland would not ratify that until 1969.
Okay.
Okay.
So what's the thesis statement?
So the bottom line is it was done. But again, the battle then becomes one of, I've got a depression happening in this country now because one bank in New York collapsed. And we're blaming the fact that the Civil War now has rendered slavery the thing that white men in this country use to build their wealth.
Oh, we're not arguing that. White people are arguing that.
It's
and
rendered
because of Drapomania. That, oh my goodness, I cannot believe these black.
What kind of mania?
Drapomania, which was what they.
Can you spell that for me, please?
I'm not a spelling scholar. Drapeoania. Can I have the origin, please? Anyway,
I want to look it up because
yes.
I've never heard of it.
Well, I'll tell you, Drapomania was a disease that during that time the doctors created to describe what the explanation is for why black people at the time were running away and didn't want to be enslaved. Because they didn't want to be enslaved, there had to be something mentally wrong with them. So that sounds like Drapomania to me. Because at the end of the day, where we are right now in the narrative, you're acting as if
you're here.
I'm receiving that
There
you're
you
saying
go. Yeah.
that during this time that there was an equal sharedness of power, between white society and black society, that we actually had the power to really do anything with what the crumbs is that they gave us. And one thing that I often say is just because a group of us, or maybe 2 or 3 groups of us, get something, it doesn't stop the fight. It serves no purpose that Miss Angela's family can do it or your family can do it if it's not the larger expression of us as a people. Certain people relinquishing their shackles does us no good.
So now you got to go back to the history prior to the Civil War to understand all of that. You got to understand all of the history here because there was a divisiveness even in the Civil War. Maryland was a border state, but Maryland was a pro-Confederate border state.
I know. Mostly slaves.
The attitude in Maryland was we want to keep the slaves. And had Maryland been given the opportunity, I believe Maryland would have been with the Confederacy.
Yeah.
However, why wasn't Maryland with the Confederacy? Because of where it sat next to the
too close to the seat.
Exactly. And Lincoln negotiated a deal with Maryland. I need you to remain a border state so that we can keep this border around this national capital. Because if the Confederates get to Washington, D.C.,
it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. It's a wrap. But Maryland was never one to want to be, we're going to free the slaves and we're going to give them equality. That was not the case.
None of them did. Not even Lincoln. He said if he could keep the peace between
the North and the South and keep slavery.
Then that's what I'm saying. Like,
and
they get points, kudos that, we had enough abolitionists or we had enough, whatever it was, like it changed. Okay, thank you. I appreciate this. This is where we are now with it. Because a lot of people do not realize that the spirit of white supremacy, because that's what it was that has always been. The spirit of white supremacy has deeply entrenched all African descendant people and people of color into spaces of 9 different areas of people activity. We have no power over anything. We are subjected to it all. And I get some of us can learn the information and we can navigate spaces, but the larger understanding is I would say we're really not that much further along than we were when we were freed in 1865.
No, we're still in the middle of Reconstruction.
Right. So for
Shit.
right. And so,
I mean, I call it like I see it. But my thing is this. What I cannot do and what I'm not going to do is hold on to the anger that says, you're not treating me right. I'm one of those people, guess what? I'm going to learn to navigate your space, and then I'm going to try to bring some other people with me. But this is the problem. I can't bring people into the room who's got all this anger and rah, 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 we're going to fight. Because that's not how you're going to win this war.
okay, I disagree because if you hurt me, I'm going to say ouch. I'm not going to smile in your face and say it was okay.
I'm not
what
saying,
they did was very, very wrong.
I'm not, and I didn't say it was right.
Absolving. It sounds like you're absolving them.
No, what I'm saying is you got to be a little bit more surreptitious, strategic, and a little bit more sophisticated about how we demand things.
Well, I
We the people.
I say
take their rules, and we're gonna play. We're gonna master them,
and we're gonna do it, and we're gonna do it with so much
that's what
flair
I've
and
done.
so much color and so much grace and all of the angriness that we have.
Look, but that's what I've done. There's not a white man who will tell you he don't respect me. He might not like me, and I don't want him to like me. But when it comes down to doing what needs to be done to get the job done, baby, I'll stroke my own horn today. I'm one of the best you ever gonna find.
Well,
And if we all would dig into ourselves and learn those kinds of skills, we would be much better off.
Introspection is a real thing.
so
Go ahead.
These types of conversations can get really interesting because I think I see it differently. I don't think the because that's your solution. I don't think the solution is, and this is the reason why we're still pretty much where we were in 1865. We're begging our oppressors to stop oppressing us instead of doing what our ancestors did by coming together, creating co-ops, creating communities, forming spaces together where we don't have to ask the government for anything, because historically proven, which you just did such an eloquent job of explaining, they're going to do what they want to do regardless. So I don't see how the argument can be, well, I need to go in and check my tone or have a little more, what was it, sophisticatedism in how I'm asking you to stop oppressing me?
Everything ain't about oppression, though, because I don't walk into a room with a mindset of you oppressing me.
Well, I mean,
my mindset is I can do any damn thing in this country I want to do. Why? Because I'm a citizen of this country. I have the same rights that they have. Do I get to exercise them the same way that they do and get away with the bullshit that they get away with? Hell to the no. So let's just keep it real.
So what purpose
but
does it have?
I'm not them. I don't want to be them. I am me. Uniquely made. I know what my skills are. I know what my gifts are. I know what I was called and brought here to do, and I'm gonna do it. And you're not gonna interfere with that. You might try to frustrate it, but you can't stop it.
Yeah,
that's me. So when I walk in that room, I don't have to tell them I'm black. Fuck it, they see that. Excuse my French, y'all. It's getting hot today. They see that. I don't have to remind anybody that I'm black. They see it. I don't have to remind them of their dogged, nasty, evil, wicked, twisted history. They know it better than I do. Let's just keep it real.
I've met some white folks who do not know that. And that's a big problem.
Tell you.
They don't have to.
Those who are descendants of the white aristocracy in this country know their history. Don't let nobody fool you, Miss Angela.
I've had conversations. Well, we'll agree to disagree. Because I'm not going to give them that much fucking credit.
They know that. Look, if I play ignorant, if I play duplicitous, then I look like I'm not harming you. I look friendly to you.
Now I want you to know what you're dealing with. And I get you, but I'm never going to do that.
Ever.
I mean, am I?
It serves no purpose.
Do I say, I'm going to tell you right now, no, I don't trust anybody. You got to earn it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they ain't earned it yet.
Because I think what this does, I think it kind of absolves the reality that there is a system, a religion of white supremacy that governs this entire world, not even just America, this entire world. And it was structured that way. Because if we go back to the very beginning, and we look at the greatest thievery ever known to man that's founded in sex trafficking, human trafficking, cannibalism. When you look at the structure of the United States of America and the colonizers who came over here, you have to then ask yourself a question: why is it that we all just agreed that we are no better off than we were in 1865? And I think it has a lot to do with, I mean, because it's technically a contradiction. You say, well, when they were freed through slavery, we had an opportunity to negotiate reparations, and we got the land, and it was 5 months that we did it, and now.
And this is the thing you need to listen to, because we get caught up in the black. It wasn't every black person in this country who got to participate in that. Where did I tell you it was geography? Where did I tell you it was?
So then
if you were in Maryland,
South Carolina.
Stop. Because if you were in Maryland, if you were enslaved in Maryland, you didn't participate in what happened down there.
Yeah, but then it can't be reparations.
Again, you got to understand the history before you get into arguing what it is or what it ain't.
But reparation means to make amends. If they're not making amends.
Stop. Again, I want you to think about, you got to look at this objectively, Michaela.
Okay.
I'm not saying I disagree with you. I need you to understand the history before you go making an argument for what I am entitled to. Because my thing is, know your enemy, know yourself. Mm-hmm. And you got to know where they're coming from when they bring the arguments.
All right, may I speak, please? Both of you? Because I feel the same way. But semicolon, however, comma, when, Lincoln got assassinated, his vice president,
Andrew Johnson,
was a
Democrat.
A racist.
A Democrat, because Democrats were racist.
Yeah.
They were all racist.
Yeah.
They did not want to reconstitute the country.
I know that.
Call them what they are.
Yeah, I know that. But when he got in, he took everything away. Now, history told me, the books I have read, and I have read every book that I reference in my book that I wrote, I read them all cover to cover. When he got in charge, the white man with the deed and the black man with the deed, the white man with the deed got the property. Now show me where that didn't happen.
In Hilton Head Island, there were some black people who got their property.
Mm-hmm.
Now, years later, they were taxed out of it.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some black people who walked away in Hilton Head Island, South Carolina, with their property that they claimed during the era of reparations.
Okay, and that is an example, but I'm talking about collectively.
Great.
But reparations was never a collective thing to start with.
So then it's not reparations if the definition is to make amends.
Well, they stopped. I mean, my thinking was when Sherman and the Secretary of War said, okay, we're going to do this. Sherman went to tell people that, the freedmen, if you will, that this was going to be done. But in the midst of him doing his, and I call it his Paul Revere thing, it got yanked out from under.
Okay, so then it's not reparations.
I agree with
Again,
it was a collective conversation.
It wasn't reparations for slavery. Let me clarify that for you right now, because see, that's how people think about it. It was reparations for slavery. No, it was not. This was about the Civil War and the fact that we had 11 states who seceded from the Union and tried to use their slaves in the Confederacy, and those slaves said, nope, ain't fighting for you, sorry, not no more.
But some of them did because they were promised freedom.
Exactly. They were promised freedom by the Southerners. And Lincoln said, okay, you want to play this game? I can give everybody freedom. Let's pass this 13th Amendment.
Right.
That's why it was passed in the middle of the battle, because the word got out.
Yeah.
We didn't have the internet like we do now. We didn't have the phone like we do now. But the word got back to the White House. They promising these slaves that if you fight for us, we're going to give you your freedom. Lincoln said, ooh, Lincoln was a smart man. And Michaela, at your age, I'm just going to be honest with you. I felt a lot like you do about former president, deceased president, late president, 16th president of the United States, Abraham Lincoln. It was only when I literally sat down and started reading his handwritten documents that I went, okay, yes, even Lincoln was conflicted, but he had a conscience, and he knew something about this was not right, and we got to fix it, but it's not going to be an easy fix.
Every president that we've had, according to Nixon's piano, knew that enslaving people was wrong.
Anybody with
They
a
knew
soul and
Again.
a brain
Again,
would have known
again,
that it was wrong.
Again, Lincoln had the courage
Mm-hmm.
to attempt to take on not the slaves.
Mm-hmm.
He had to take on his own people, and that's why I don't say white versus black.
Mm-hmm.
You got to I look at them as a party structure, because there were some white people who said this is not right.
John Brown.
We got to do better.
Same things on the same snake.
Mm-hmm.
We got to do better, and I'll give them credit for that.
Mm-hmm.
No, they might not want me to come over eat dinner at their house,
Mm-hmm.
but at least they were willing to acknowledge my humanity. I have to give them credit for that.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
That they
you can do
acknowledge,
that.
yeah, I like that for you. I'm not a fan of it, unfortunately, because I think what we have done. But you said it, so I thought you was coming down to my side of.
This wasn't
of thinking.
reparations. Again,
It
it
wasn't.
wasn't reparations for slavery. It was reparations for the Civil War and the fact that there were 11 states
Yeah.
who did not come into this. We gonna get rid of slavery willingly. They had to get
And
their
it's another
asses
thing.
whooped into it.
But they
And
still
it's
didn't
another
get it.
thing that black folks do not. They don't know that reparations was paid, making people whole. They were paid to the white people who lost slaves.
300 for each
And that's
slave.
what we need
Yeah.
to know.
100.
We're
And,
still,
and again, when you go back, and I have not had the opportunity to go through AIG's archives,
mm-hmm,
the life insurance policies that were paid
mm-hmm,
for the value of the slaves
mm-hmm.
were on the white men who died in the Civil War. That's how they wrote those policies.
So I think my question is,
No, but the reparations, excuse me, was paid to the slave master owner family.
It was the
for-
the living spouses who remained after those white men died. Because you got to remember the time. Women didn't have the right to vote.
Got it.
Women didn't have positions in power or government either. And I'm not justifying feminism. I'm just telling you the facts of the day.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And white men knew if I die today, I got to leave something for Miss Polly to be able to manage this plantation, or Miss Polly going to go marry another white man, and they going to merge, because that's what happened. They married another slave owner, they merged the plantations, and somebody's wealth grew bigger.
Yeah.
So what they did was slave owners went and said, I'm going to buy an insurance policy on me. How did they value white men back then? Down south?
Property.
The number of your property, the house you own, the land you own, and the number of slaves you own. So when them rascals got killed, because they were killed by
I got you.
hundreds of thousands in the Civil War, AIG had to pay up
Yeah, but
on their lives. And yes, y'all call it reparations, but they were insurance payments for the property that those white men insured to make sure their widows would be taken care of.
But you
Yeah,
said
so-
that they insured their life. I'm saying that the government, the Secretary of War, paid reparations to those slave owners based on the number of slaves that they can provide inventory for.
I
And it
ain't,
was
I ain't
300
never seen.
each.
I ain't never seen. Look, that was part of Andrew Johnson's plan because he did not want to drag the South kicking and screaming into the new day and the new era of the United States. He wanted to be nice.
Yeah, so he just let them do business as
We
usual,
gonna
and that's all I
No,
was saying.
what he said, they couldn't do business as usual because those constitutional amendments were in place.
Yeah, constitutional amendments in the Supreme Court told Alabama just last year that they couldn't do stuff that they doing it anyway.
absolutely.
But look, again, that's because people ain't going out here to vote, and y'all letting those ghosts, those spirits of the past, come back to life.
I can relate.
I don't disagree with
I
that.
can relate.
piece.
The court-
that is the
The
problem.
court interprets the law. They don't make the law. Now, how they interpret the law can be up to the heart of that man who's interpreting it. I will give you that. But if people would stand up and vote and put the right people in office, we wouldn't have to worry about these Supreme Court justices.
Because they wouldn't be there.
But we just,
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, because right now I'm for packing the court before you get it.
And that's why I say we have to educate ourselves, not with a cloak of anger. You got to see it for what it is, like it or not. I'm not sitting here expressing my opinion on it because I have my own personal opinions on it. But I have to see the facts.
we love facts.
I got to see the facts without the sentiment. So then I can plan a way forward. Because once it gets colored with the emotion, I want to fight too. But where is that getting us?
But I can have
But we
facts.
can move forward with passion.
Okay.
We can move forward with passion.
Exactly.
Because let me
Trust
tell
me,
you,
I do it every day.
in order for me to be angry at the white people, I have to acknowledge their existence, and I don't. But I will tell you, I'm very well versed on the struggle that black people have gone through. Whether I lived it or not, I can articulate from A, B, all the way to Z to let you know how we got to where we are today. The problem is, though, we have bought into a narrative that we think that we're any further along than we were in 1865. And we're still trying to do the same exact things instead of doing what I thought you did such an eloquent job of exposing.
I have never told anybody we were farther along. I tell you all day, we ignorant.
No, when you said that we had land and we were sharecropping, because I like that narrative. That narrative is great. I believe that it's the solution for how we get out where we are today.
But that didn't happen.
I know it didn't happen. Well, no, Miss Tanya said it did happen.
No, there were things that happened, but there were for every step forward, there were 2 steps backwards.
100%.
And there's a reason for that.
Yes.
But we just focus on the 2 steps backwards without looking at the reason for why we went backwards. We got to look at that too. You can't ignore that and just say, "Oh, it's just white people."
What? No,
it's people. Period.
Thank you. It's all people. There's some things that happen in history that will cause us to go backwards.
Well, it was more so believers of white supremacy as a religion, because that could be on both sides. It could be the coons and all of them.
But did you know that Ulysses S. Grant literally sent the federal government down and prosecuted the KKK?
Oh yes, I did know that. Yes, I did know that. Absolutely.
So again, those are things in history that you have to pay attention to.
I can acknowledge it, but I'm not getting ready to sit here and make it the ultimate thing that we've been asking for. Thank you, nice white man, for doing.
Stop, Michaela.
ahead.
I never said it was the ultimate. Again, a move forward. Another president who steps in and says this is wrong. We're going to prosecute you for this. But then he's got to deal with the backlash from his own people. And he had to deal with that backlash. So then when he gets ready to run for his second election, it's like, oh shit, I might not get elected. So now we got to strike some deals. The politics come to play. So we step backwards. And then what happens after that? There's the introduction of the black code down south.
Yes.
Down south, the black code. And it happens. That's why I said you have to study the history and go, okay, we moved a little damn, 2 steps back. Then we had to fight through the civil rights movement to get rid of the black code. And we moved a little bit forward. And then what happened?
We sold ourselves out.
Dr. King got assassinated. That shocked the nation. That put fear in men's, because that was always the game. If I can put fear in a black man's heart, I can move it back a bit.
And, well, me and Ms. Angela talked yesterday, and what I pretty much figured out when it came down to the leadership, I think that wasn't what we were supposed to do. We were not supposed to have our consciousness in one person, because the very thing of taking him out is where I would argue to say that we have not been able to move from that point.
Well,
I think each of us are leaders.
Exactly.
Yeah,
we are. But it wasn't even just him, though. You got to remember, Malcolm X was there.
And Medgar Evers.
Yes.
Absolutely. But that's what I'm saying. See, we're expecting a person to come or a savior to happen when all of this is nice to listen to. I love it. It's really what I have spent a decade of my life studying and researching. But when we're talking about today, I think what my issue is we're taking those little wins as some type of solace of something. Honestly, it did nothing for us as a collective of a people at all.
And I don't disagree with that, but every journey starts with a step.
Exactly.
But then why? But
and again,
we don't think it's problematic that we're no further along than we were in 1865, and we have right now 4 generations that are alive and aware.
You know
why?
Yes, no, wait a minute. We're not alive.
Answer your question.
All right.
Yes, I do think it's a problem. Hence, that's why I come in here every Thursday and ask you guys to come in every Thursday, because again, we're getting different perspectives from our own personal experience with the history.
Absolutely.
And we need to take these folks to school, because this is where we're suffering. We don't have information.
And we use the wrong terminology. Nobody said that stuff was solace. Like you said, we called multiple names of men who were leading the charge in their areas of the country.
But we're leading the charge, and this is what I look at this as. because numbers come up on that screen. They may not come up. They come up on my page, and I'm sure your pages as well. Numbers, people are listening. Now, all we can do is what we can do from this spot to put the information out there.
Exactly. And what I say to you, Michaela, is if you're going to lead the charge, I want you to learn all the history, because those who forget history are deemed to repeat it.
Bound to repeat it. But that Bama know her stuff.
Well, and
I mean, literally. Sorry.
I mean, all of, but the thing is this, and I had to sit down too and learn this thing from a different perspective. Because I learned history in school, and at her age, I knew a lot too. I had to sit down and look at the timeline again and put it together and literally try to, as best I could, recreate it as it was happening at the time. So that, because you know they say, you can't judge a man until you walk a mile in his shoes. I sit down in a quiet time and I get all these books in front of me and I'm reading different versions of this, that, and the other. And in my mind's eye, I take myself back to that time and say, okay, let me try to follow, because I can't walk his shoes, but let me follow what Lincoln was dealing with. Let me follow what Grant was dealing with. Let me follow Sherman. Let me follow the Secretary of War. Let me follow Miss Polly, the widow. It's called empathy. And then I try to put all of these pieces together to say, okay, if I can understand the big picture, we got to restructure some things. Because guess what? I don't give a damn how much we get out here and start a revolution. We still got those same issues, concerns, spirits, those same-minded people with different names living amongst us now. We got to learn how to combat them. We got to learn how to answer them. We got to learn how to deal with them. We got to learn how to talk to them. And at some vein, even try to negotiate with them. But if you're going to ignore them and just say, I'm going to take you out, I'm going to do a mass genocide of white people, and we're going to be in control.
That doesn't even make sense, though.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's not ever anything that I've ever said. And unfortunately, I think it's ironic that one of the things I have with education and its curriculum, and which is what I'm studying with my thesis, is what we value is what we teach. And what I realize when it comes to institutions, they have to keep a narrative. And the narrative that you have created today justifies and absolves them of what they have done. I have passion, I have clarity, I have understanding, I have the youth that's necessary to actually implement, create, and watch something go and see it through. In the time that you have been studying and researching and doing all of that, all that you have seen is, or from what you have said today, is that there was a time that reparations could have been whatever it was that could have happened. And then the narrative to me is walk a mile in their shoes.
But for the assassination of Lincoln, we have no idea what this country would look like had Lincoln lived to the end of his second term.
But okay, well,
and if they had implemented Johnson's plan.
Okay, but they didn't.
Yeah.
And
Well,
right
actually,
now,
no,
I'm saying I was
they
just-
did.
well,
No, they didn't.
well, what they
not.
didn't.
They tried not to, but
They didn't.
The 1877 compromise.
See,
yeah,
No,
they did.
I'm talking about Lyndon Johnson.
So
I'm talking about the current.
I was gonna say, hold up. That's why I say, Andrew, hold up now. Okay, Lyndon B. Johnson. That's 4.
well, all of that is good to know, and I know it, but yet we're staring at 2025, Project 2025, and we're sitting here. Okay.
No, go ahead. We backpedaling. Go ahead.
We're
'Cause
not
we gonna
moving.
talk. Yeah, we're not
We're
moving.
literally not moving, and so you're now saying, because unfortunately we're no longer at a place that fighting through legislation and the government is where we're getting ready to be, because of this spirit of white supremacy as a religion that is deeply bedded in the DNA of America, with the genocide in America, with police brutality, the arming and the killing of our people, that at the rate in which we're going and the things that we're right now seeing in the government, because unfortunately a lot of people don't have trust and value in the government, because maybe they have read and studied and they've learned all of the history of the government and they call bullshit. You know, maybe that's the reality.
What's so scary about
exactly.
this.
And so we're in here and we're talking about well, we have to continue to vote. We have to do all of that stuff. Okay, well, we do that. And we come in and we're going to pump it out every Thursday and we're going to give it our best. We're going to come in empathy. We're going to come with all of the goodness, right? And say that the cards do not fall in our favor. And we get back into a situation where, because history loves to repeat itself, of 1865 when the war ends. Say that we go through a war and it's a havoc and all of this stuff. What decision would we do if we're reading the history and that's the understanding that we're getting?
This is the problem, Michaela. We focus a lot on this show. Our primary focus is government. Mm-hmm. But Ms. Angela has reminded you there how many? Figure?
Yeah, 5 tenants.
5 tenants. Mm-hmm. We focus on one. Mm-hmm. One. We touch on the others. Mm-hmm. Family. What's going on in the black family right now? Where are we?
I already told you where we are. We're so broken. It's not even a structure anymore.
So again, economics. Where are we with the economics?
We own nothing. We have a trillion. I was going to answer the questions.
Wait a minute. But I was going to go back to the family. Mm-hmm. They have legislated the power away from the parents.
Again, but
because we don't show up and push back.
'Tis true. But beyond the legislation, again, we got to do some introspection. We got to look at ourselves.
Oh, that is my favorite word in the universe.
Man in the mirror.
Until we look at ourselves.
What are we doing with
honest
our family?
Assessment of what we are doing.
And we're not.
Because the first classroom is the cradle. That's the first one.
So, the bottom line is we focus on the government. And I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm not absolving anybody. It is
not perfect, but it's we the people.
Not even okay.
Who don't understand that we are the ones who set the government, and we just voluntarily step back.
There's some people.
Now we are volunteer victims.
Yes,
and I refuse to be that.
Exactly, and there are people, Michaela, who will tell you. Sweat is a curse word in Prince George's County. I'm public enemy number 1. Mm-hmm. I walk around with a target on my back every single day. Mm-hmm. If you could follow me in a day and see how I fight, not just with the white man, I fight with my own people. Because we are ignorant. Mm-hmm. There's so much that we don't know. And we have exponentially grown since 1863, 1865, 1877, 1975, 1976. We've grown tremendously. And we're not even teaching our own children the right history.
I'm teaching mine.
And you know what? And I thank God for you, Miss Angela. And I thank God for those families who get into those books and teach the true history. I thank God for those families like mine who may not have been able to read beyond 8th grade, but they were passed down the oral history, which triggered the curiosity in me to make me go do the studying and to make me go look. But how many of our families now, because we don't talk about it, it's embarrassing. We don't want to talk about that no more.
Oh, we do.
We've got to teach our families the true history and stop fussing at the government because the government ain't teaching it. They can't whitewash something that we're teaching at home. When I send my children out of my house and they know their history, you can't whitewash it to them. I don't care what public school I put them in. That's my job. I brought them babies here. The government didn't bring them here. When it comes to economics, yes, I appreciate them teaching economics in the school, but it's only one damn semester in high school. I teach my children the power of money, how to save money, how to spend money, how to earn money. I teach my children that there's a gift in you. You ain't got to chase that green dollar, because if you do this thing right, that green dollar will chase you.
You do what you love.
I teach my children that. My children see me working in the government because that's all I've done with my career. I'm a private attorney, but I'm still fighting the government.
Because the government.
I talk to my children about education and the importance of reading a book and not just one book on a subject. I need you to go digging in that library. I made sure my children had a library card, not just a computer at home that said, "Hey, Google."
Okay, but we got all that.
And then religion. I'm going to hit that one too because we're talking about the tenants. She asked what would happen if we do a revolution. We were only talking about one tenant. We got 4 other tenants of this world that we're not dealing with as African Americans. So we can fight the government all day long and take over the government. What happens with those 4 other tenants?
I still go back to the second tenant, and that's why I'm here.
I teach my children about the Bible. And the relationship. I mean, come on.
But as you shared with me, and as I learned on my own, an education is not a right under the Constitution.
No, it's not.
But there's a law, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, that they can pull anytime that they get ready. And I'm saying that.
And your boy already told you he gonna pull it.
Yeah, but I'm saying all that to say we should demand what's going on in the schools, because that will augment what we teach at our houses.
Absolutely.
They're not doing it.
Absolutely.
And we're not making them do it.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%, Ms. Angela. But this is what I add to that. If we start teaching our children at home, then it's not just the parents demanding it. Our children are prepared to go into that classroom and demand it too. Because when the teacher opens a book and say, I'm going to teach you on this subject, and the child breaks out and say, wait a minute, that ain't everything. Let me add to it. Then the teacher looking at the child like, okay, you done got ahead of me. So we got to pick this up a bit. And if you get a classroom full of 30, 40 kids who can do that, it's going to revolutionize our education system, because we got to do something better.
Let me just tell you this. 2 kids revolutionized Malik's
there it is.
class.
There it is.
Just 2. So, and we just have to do more of that. You're looking.
Oh, no, I don't have nothing to say. Nothing to say.
It's complex, and there are multiple moving pieces.
It's not really complex, to be honest. You
Well,
see it one way. You see it the way that it's always been done.
Complex.
And if you do what you've always done, you'll get what you've always got.
Exactly.
I think that way of
better.
knowing is problematic. Absolutely. You believe, and based off of the narrative that you presented today, that the solution is going to come from the government. Okay,
I never said that.
Okay.
When did you hear me say that?
That's what you basically argued.
No,
that
you put words in my mouth, sweetie.
You have argued today that basically there were certain presidents that did certain things, and they gave us an opportunity. We had the opportunity, and we have to sharecrop. And you've said it multiple times that it's we, but in congruence with the very people who are, you don't like the word oppressing us, but have control or
oppress.
I don't have a problem with the word oppression. Let me explain something to you, sweetie. I can't change him, but what I can do is change how he reacts to me.
How
You
can
hold
you
them
do that?
accountable. Holding folks accountable.
I can change how he reacts to me, and in order to change his reaction to me, that means I got to change my actions.
From what? What did you change?
You
your action
tell
from
me,
what?
because to hear you tell it, black people got it together and we all good.
I've never said that. What I've said
this is the deal.
What I've said
Hold
is
up,
stop
wait a
asking
minute.
your oppressors to
Wait
stop
a minute.
oppressing you and take matters.
I ain't never asked them to stop doing nothing. I never asked them to stop doing a damn thing for me. I work my ass off every day. They never told me to go to the Library of Congress.
I think she's talking about, we're going back in the way you were describing.
Yeah, and I'm not.
What I was doing, this is what I was doing. Miss Angela asked me, where did I get my information from? And what I was doing was breaking down where I got my information and the information that I got. You assumed, because I was explaining the facts.
I didn't ask you where you got your information from.
Well,
I asked you for about one piece of the information.
Yes. But again, she assumes, very wrongfully, that I think that's the gospel and it's gravy and it's wonderful. No, I'm breaking down the history, because now that I understand the history, I can govern myself accordingly.
But when you did sound like to me that you were looking for, but this was early on, a governmental solution to the problem way back then.
The only reason why I talked about the governmental solution, because there are writings that show there was a president in place who had every intention, from what I can see in his writings, to make things better. But he was assassinated. 2 days after the war ended. Oh well, that's gone. So now we got to start again with a new president who didn't have that in mind. I will give credit where credit is due.
Just some clarity to me. The 40 acres and a mule piece, did that come in 1863 or did that come in 1865?
That was in 1865, January of 1865.
Okay, all right. Just looking for some clarity.
January of 1865.
Because a lot of folks in 1863 in various plantations were saying, y'all free going out there. And that's what that pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Really
Exactly. That's where that comes from. And do you know why they were
but
running?
they had no boots.
Right. And they were running them off the plantations because the Union Army was coming, and they didn't want the federal government to decimate their lands and take it away. That's why they were saying in 1863, y'all get on out of here. They were trying to save themselves.
Yeah. Not surprised.
Let's just keep it real.
Yeah.
I read that history too, and that's what it boils down to. Slave masters were saying, "Oh, get off my land, cause you a danger to me, man.
Yeah.
And they gonna come get me."
But that's how white folks be white people. That's it.
So please don't attribute words to me that, hey, no, I'll give you credit where credit is due, even if it's only a minutia of credit that you're entitled to get. I'm gonna give it to you.
I'm not giving you credit for not beating me as hard.
Do I?
I'm not giving you credit for not beating me as hard.
I got you.
But okay. Great talk.
I mean, hey, I tell everybody, I worked off. I served my country. Didn't want to. Didn't want to, but I did it.
Yeah.
And I got benefit from it, and I used those benefits to my benefit. Most people don't know that after I served in the military as an officer, I turned around and resigned my commission. I don't talk about it.
But those conversations really kind of serve no purpose, like I said.
Exactly.
And basically what I'm saying is it does not serve any purpose that a few of us make it out. Technically, if you really want to be quite honest, I don't really have to be here arguing and trying to help my people. I've figured out what needs to be done. I will live a great unoppressed life very quickly. However, it serves me no purpose that I know the information and I've uncovered the information, and I'm not doing everything in my power to help my people or any other people who are oppressed to relinquish that oppression.
How do you plan to do that?
I'll have a master plan, but I don't think we have time for it.
No, I want you to summarize.
A master plan.
Give me that.
She can't summarize.
Please give me
Oh
the
yeah.
high-level
Oh honey.
executive summary.
No ma'am. We're not gonna what is it? Play with the plan. I will definitely lay it all the way out for you. 100%. It's not something that we have enough time for today. But if we would like Michaela to tell her plan next show, I am ready. I talk about it all the time. And it has nothing to do with the government. Absolutely.
So we're not going to do 2025 next week. We're going to continue this discussion.
We
Is that
can.
what I'm
Absolutely.
understanding? You good
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay.
10 out of 10 recommend.
We won't be here next week. We're doing a playback, so it has to be the week after.
No.
Oh,
the playback is Sunday. We're going to record the
recording
show
on Sunday
at 12 o'clock. It's going to play back on the 27th.
Okay, that's
So
when.
we'll be
Okay,
back
gotcha.
here next week.
Okay, cool. I'm keep my calendar straight.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I want to hear this plan
Absolutely. 10 out of 10 recommend.
because I'm gonna tell you right now, I walked out with a plan too and failed miserably.
Oh, see the bulletproof.
You never
discipline-
fail until you stop trying.
I haven't stopped trying.
Yeah.
But
So you ain't
let me
failed.
tell you,
You got to work at it.
ooh, this world is huge and there's a lot of black folk out here.
And that's not my objective is not to save everybody. It's not my objective. My objective is to save the ones who want to be saved. I'm not. It's giving Harriet 2.0 over here, to be honest. Like, and I get this because I've actually studied the history. And when you actually study the history and you analyze the good that has come from it and the bad, not as a way to understand the story, but to actually, see where you've been, to know where you're going, then why would you not take all that you need and leave what you don't? We can just start there next week.
So what you're saying is there are people who are expendable.
No, I'm not. What did Harriet say? You're not going to slow me down.
Liberty or death.
And you not going to get me caught.
Yeah.
And why does she walk around with a gun? Now, hopefully I'm as successful as Harriet. And I don't have to
walk around with a gun.
Oh, I don't have to use it. She didn't have to use it, but she would have used it. Before I let one person or a group of people be the very thing that keeps us in shackles, our mental shackles, because you got too scared or it got too hard or you want to go back to the comfort. Absolutely. And that's the mentality we have to get back to. I'm not here trying to convince anybody of anything.
Well, again, I don't think any of us here are here to convince or persuade. We are here to educate we put the information out there. That's what we can do in this space.
Sounds good to
And
me.
some people are picking it up. I know because I get dialogue in my messages. Everybody ain't gonna get it.
Sounds good to me.
But we have to put the information out there so those who are ready to receive it
Can receive it.
Exactly.
I do agree, 100%.
Excuse me, folks, because for reasons I don't know and can't comment on, there are a lot of people who don't get this information, who haven't gotten this information, and that's the thing that breaks my heart. And for me, as an attorney, I can do this one case at a time, or I can use the government and try to get to the masses.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I want to, and I'm going to see where Dr. Miller and Ms. Brown are, because I really believe those are the school system folks who are running in District 5. I really want to know what they can do, since all I get was we set policy. And the superintendent reports to us. And then I heard the superintendent doesn't report to us. I need some clarity on just that piece, because that's where we have to start. We got to start in that classroom.
Exactly.
I mean, we start at our house.
But not everybody has that ability.
Yeah, but it's got to be reinforced in school. So if they're not getting it at the house, they got to get it in the school, and we need to get those school board members to make sure that happens.
Exactly.
So with that, any not final comments, because we're gonna be back on this next week.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because again, we need to know this stuff.
You have to know this stuff.
Yeah.
And I say this, agree with it or not. And this is, I guess, the downside of being a lawyer is I share a lot of information, and it's not to be attributed to my personal opinion or belief. Because if I shared some of my personal opinions and beliefs,
you'd be locked up.
You're damn real. Oh, yes, God, Miss Angela, I would have been locked up a long time ago. But I have learned over my 51 and a half years now, some of that stuff you got to discipline, you got to temper it, you got to moderate it. You got to use it to fuel your passion, but in different ways. So anybody in the audience today, I'm gonna tell you this: just because I share history that I have read, please don't take for granted, interpret, or assume that I believe in white supremacy. I support white supremacy. None of that. Never in a million years. Never in a million years. Because if you look at my history, if you look at my career, you'll see what I have done to try to help our people.
And that's a big reason why I endorsed you for county executive.
And I'm still in this fight. But it's the bottom line. We're not on an island by ourselves. And to help...
Not yet. Go ahead.
That's part of her solution. But
to help my people in the situation that we're in, I got to be willing, ready, and able to deal with them. I have to. So that means I got to know just as much about them as they know about them. And I need to know me a hell of a lot better, because I need to know what I will do, what I won't do.
Yeah.
I need to know how far I will go, how far I won't, because I know there will be temptation, there will be trials, and I got to be able to pass them if I'm going to be successful at helping my people.
Yeah. Well, one thing that, because people constantly say, well, why don't you run for this, that, and the other? I'm not going to waste my time if you don't know the system.
There you go.
That's thing number one. And one thing I will not compromise under any circumstances or any amount of dollars is my integrity. I'm not doing.
And politics will make you compromise your integrity if you're not careful. And I'm going to tell you right now, there are very few that I have seen, that I have watched, do politics and maintain their integrity. Very few.
But I believe that it's possible.
It is possible.
100%.
It is possible.
It's no question about it.
I'm not saying it can't happen. But when you see the majority of our politicians and you see how their professional lives play out, they're the ones who live politics, do politics with integrity, are not in the spotlight.
Yeah, of course.
They're not in the spotlight.
I would agree.
Absolutely.
Like the squad is not in the spotlight. They get dragged into it, but they're
Correct.
trying to do some of the right stuff.
Correct.
And I respect that.
Absolutely.
Correct.
Awesome
that-
show.
Also, but we have to, because this is an election year, we have to get the folks. Yeah, I looked it all up. We got to pull folks' coats in the various states to let them know who is running for office in their state and what they need to do about it if they want to promote democracy.
Right.
Because again, this election, that's what it boils down to. And you can see the talking points on the news now. They're trying to, and I'm talking about OAN, Fox Cable, especially, and News Nation. Joe Biden is senile.
Oh, yep.
And Trump is freaking crazy. And Stevie Wonder can see that.
And Trump old too. Shit, he's 77.
Yeah. He was
He ain't no spring chicken now.
Yeah.
I mean, and please, y'all, I'm not calling 77-year-old people old because that's my mama's age. But again, he ain't no spring chicken.
no, he's not.
Joe Biden's 81, he's 77. Let's keep it real. But they'll tell you Joe's age, but they ain't telling you his.
Yeah, exactly. And anybody with eyes can, well, anyway, I'm not even going to get on that train today. But we have got to take these folks to school about the folks who are running in their particular states because, again, folks are, and the news media promotes that. They give the president or make folks believe that the president has total autonomy. and
No,
he does
he
not.
does not.
And if we had that fixed in the schools, I wouldn't be as concerned. That's not fixed in the schools. We got to get that
And look,
piece
if the
fixed.
president had total autonomy, oh my God, we'd be a whole lot different place than we are right now. The different presidents I've studied. Yikes.
But again, I can go back to presidents who worked behind the scenes to try to put us back in slavery.
It'd be a hot mishmash mess.
But if you don't know your enemy,
There you
you
go.
can't fight it.
There you go. Art of War, Sun Tzu.
Yep. Yep. So with that, any final comments? All right. And we're going to be prepared. We're going to pick this discussion up next week.
With Michaela's plan.
Yeah. We're going to pick it up. All right. So you ready to close out? Because we have already gotten into the disco version.
Perfect. Awesome show today, ladies. Awesome show. Awesome. Before we close today, know that there is a lot of value in our broadcast. Please go to youtube.com/@AngelaTaylor4119 and hit the live tab. Like and subscribe. Make it a point to take time to review the broadcast. Share with your friends. No one is going to save us but us. So with that being said, we want you to count your blessings instead of your crosses. Count your gains instead of your losses. Count your joys instead of your woes. Count your friends instead of your foes. Count your smiles instead of your tears. Count your courage instead of your fears. Count your full years instead of your lean. Count your kind deeds instead of your mean. Count your health instead of your wealth. And by all means, count on God instead of yourself. We have 144 days, 9 hours, 40 minutes, and 41 seconds until the next election, everyone. This is Eminem
Signing off. And just as she said, repeat that. How much time we got again?
144 days, 9 hours, 40 minutes, and 26 seconds.
So in that time, folks, I don't care what state you live in, go online, find out who the representatives are in Congress, because that's where everything starts, in the United States House of Representatives. Find out who those people are. Vet that information that you find, because right off the top, Arizona, you got 2 insurrectionists in the House of Representatives. They need to go. You hold part of the key to preserve democracy. And I'm talking about, and I just know that off the top of my head, Arizona. But whatever state you live in, you need to go do that. Find out who represents you in the United States House of Representatives and who represents you in the United States Senate. See if their beliefs align with yours. And I can tell you again off the top, Arizona's do not. They don't want democracy. So if I'm not going to say if you like the way you live, and if you like the ability to have a choice, then you go vet them folks, see what they're about, see if they line up with what you're thinking, and vote accordingly. So with that, here at We the People, we believe that there's a lot of good in the world. Mm-hmm. And we encourage each and every one of you to go out there and be that good. This is 821. I'm out.